3 months, 11 towns, 2 ruined horses, and a boot heel she'd had to nail back on twice. And Eliza Vance had told herself, every single one of those days, that she wasn't chasing a ghost. She'd chased ghosts before, men who slipped through her fingers like river water, who left cold trails and colder rooms and nothing behind but the smell of somebody else's fear. Sally Bronson wasn't like that. Sally Bronson left a trail like she wanted to be followed. A horse sold too cheap in Yuma, a name signed too careless in a boarding house in Socorro, a bartender in Bisbee who remembered her because she'd tipped too well for a woman on the run. It should have bothered Eliza more than it did. Instead, it had needled at her all the way north, a small burr under the saddle blanket of her thoughts, impossible to reach and impossible to ignore. Why leave a trail at all if you mean to disappear? She found the answer to that on a Tuesday, though she didn't know it yet. Didn't know she'd found anything except a woman sitting on a fence rail outside a burned-out line shack, boot heels hooked on the bottom rung, hat pushed back, watching the road like she'd been expecting company. The shack itself had gone to char and collapse years back, black ribs of timber standing up out of the dirt like something that had died mid-reach. Nothing left standing but that one length of fence and the woman on it, unhurried as Sunday. Eliza came up slow, rifle across her thighs, reading the ground the way she'd read 100 ambush sites before this one. No fresh horse tracks but the one, no boot prints doubling back, no rifle glint from the rocks above, just Sally Bronson, dust-colored hair escaping its braid, watching Eliza's approach with an expression that had no business belonging to a woman 3 months into running for her life. She looked amused. She looked, if Eliza let herself think it, relieved. Eliza drew the pistol instead of the rifle, closer work now, and rifles were clumsy at 10 feet, and walked the horse up until she could see the exact color of the other woman's eyes. Gray, like weather coming. A small white scar through one eyebrow, old, the kind you stopped noticing was there. Sally Bronson? Not a question. She'd carried the wanted poster so long the paper had gone soft as cloth in her saddlebag, the charcoal likeness worn pale at the folds. The woman in front of her was better than the drawing, sharper in the jaw, a mouth that looked like it knew things the rest of her face wasn't saying. Depends who's asking. But she was already sliding down off the rail, unhurried, hands loose and open at her sides, the posture of a woman surrendering to weather, not to a gun. Bounty hunters asking. Figured as much. Sally's gaze dropped to the pistol, then came back up, entirely unbothered, like Eliza had shown her an interesting rock instead of a loaded Colt. Took you long enough? That stopped Eliza's hand on the reins for half a second. Outlaws ran. Outlaws talked fast and lied faster, promised money that didn't exist, wept if they thought it would buy them an hour. She had never, not once in 10 years of this work, had one of them smile at her like she was a guest arriving late to supper. Turn around, hands together. Sally turned, offered her wrists up without being told twice, the way you'd hand over a coat you were glad to be rid of. Her pulse, when Eliza's fingers brushed it, settling the cuffs, beat slow and even. Not a woman fighting panic down, a woman whom had already made her peace with something, days or weeks before Eliza ever rode into view. "You're not going to run," Eliza said, testing it out loud, the way you'd press a bruise to see how deep it went. "Wasn't planning on it." Sally glanced back over her shoulder, and there, just for a moment, gone as quick as it came, something moved behind her that wasn't relief at all, something closer to dread, pointed not backward at the trail behind them, but forward at wherever the road ahead was going to end. Not from you, anyway. Eliza didn't ask what that meant, not yet. She told herself it wasn't her business what an outlaw was afraid of, only that she'd deliver the woman to Prescott with the cuffs still on and the bounty intact, and be done with 3 months of chasing a ghost that had, it turned out, never much wanted to stay hidden. She should have asked anyway. She'd have plenty of time on the long road north to wish she had. They made camp that first night in a stand of cottonwoods along a creek too shallow to be called a river, and Eliza built the fire small and low like she always did, enough for coffee, not enough to be seen from the ridge. Old habit, the kind that kept a person breathing in this line of work. Sally sat across from her with her wrists cuffed in front now, close enough to warm her hands, but not close enough to reach for anything Eliza would mind losing. She watched the flames with a stillness that unsettled Eliza more than struggling would have. Most prisoners paced if they had the room for it. Most prisoners talked, low and constant, working an angle, working her, looking for the crack in the wall. Sally just watched the fire and hummed something under her breath, tuneless, private, like she'd forgotten anyone else could hear. "You always this quiet with the people fixin' to hang you?" Eliza asked, mostly to break it. "Ain't hanged yet." Sally's mouth curved, not quite a smile. Man could go a long way on ain't yet. "The judge in Prescott's not known for mercy." "Didn't say I was hoping for mercy." Sally tipped her chin up, and the firelight caught the scar through her eyebrow, the strong line of her jaw, the particular gray of eyes that seemed to change color with the light, pale as rain in the day, near black now with the fire low. Practical outlaw. Tired outlaw. She said it light, but something underneath it wasn't light at all, and Eliza, against every instinct 10 years on the trail had beaten into her, found herself wanting to ask what exactly Sally Bronson was tired of. She didn't ask. She poured coffee instead, 2 tin cups, and set one down within easy reach of the cuffed hands without quite deciding to do it, and told herself that was practical too. A prisoner who didn't have to ask for things was a prisoner who caused less trouble. Sally looked at the cup a moment before she picked it up, looked at Eliza over the rim of it, gray eyes steady in the dark. "Most hunters I've heard of would have made me walk the last stretch, save the horse for the money, sooner they didn't have to feed 2 mouths. You know a lot of hunters? Know a lot of stories." A small, private smile, gone as quick as it came. "Yours came up more than most." Eliza said nothing to that, but she was aware in a way that she didn't examine too closely of exactly the distance between them, 6 feet of packed dirt and low fire, and that some part of her had already started keeping track of things about Sally Bronson that had nothing to do with a bounty at all. The scar through her eyebrow, the way she held the tin pup with both cuffed hands like it was something worth being careful with, the particular unhurried way she had of looking at a person, like she'd already decided there was no use rushing toward whatever came next. She banked the fire low before she slept and lay with her back to it and her eyes half open, the way she always did with a prisoner across the coals. But it was a long while before her mind settled enough to let her rest, and when it finally did, it was not thinking about the reward money waiting in Prescott. The horse threw a shoe on the second morning, on ground flat and clean as a church floor, no rock in sight that could have worked it loose. Eliza crouched at the animal's hoof a long moment, turning the bare frog over in her palm, feeling for the crack or bruise that would explain it. Found nothing. Just a shoe come off clean as you please on a morning when they had 11 hard miles to make before dark. "Ain't natural," she said, half to herself. "Horses do what they please." Sally was watching the sky instead of her, one shoulder against a scrub oak, cuffed hands loose in her lap. "Same as people, I expect." Eliza looked up at that, held the look a beat too long. Sally met it without flinching, without the particular flush of a person caught in a lie, just that same steady, unhurried gray, giving nothing away, and somehow, in the giving nothing, saying a great deal. "You do something to that shoe?" "Don't see how I could have. Cuffed the whole ride in case you hadn't noticed. She held her wrists up, mild as milk. "You think I picked it loose with my teeth?" She hadn't. Eliza had checked the shoe herself not 4 hours back, tight as a drum. There was no trick to it she could find, and no sense to it either, except the plain fact that it had happened, and that Sally seemed altogether too unbothered by an accident that was going to cost them the better part of a day. They lost 4 hours to it in the end, walking the horse into a settlement called Willow Bend that was mostly one dusty street, a mercantile, a saloon with its paint peeling like sunburned skin, and a farrier's shop that smelled of scorched hoof and coal smoke. Sally talked the whole walk in, talked about the farrier's dog, a 3-legged thing that had taken an instant and inexplicable liking to her and trotted along at her cuffed hands like an old friend. Talked about a card game she'd once won in Tucson with a hand so bad the other players had accused her of witchcraft. Talked about anything, Eliza noticed, except Prescott, except the jail waiting at the end of this road, except whatever had put that flicker of dread behind her eyes back at the burned-out shack. "You always run your mouth this much?" Eliza asked, not unkindly, while the farrier worked the new shoe onto the horse's hoof and the 3-legged dog leaned its whole weight against Sally's shins, like it meant to hold her upright by sheer devotion. "Depends on the company." Sally crouched, awkward, cuffed hands and all, to scratch behind the dog's ragged ear. "You're better company than most I've kept lately." "I'm hauling you to a hanging." "I'm aware." Something moved through her voice then, quick and gone, like a fish under still water. "Doesn't mean you're not better company. Man can hold 2 true things at once." Eliza watched her with the dog a moment longer than she needed to, watched the gentleness in cuffed hands that had, according to the poster in her saddlebag, robbed no fewer than 4 stagecoaches and shot a Pinkerton man clean through the shoulder. It didn't square. None of it squared. And the not squaring had started to worry at her worse than any lie would have. "You don't seem in much hurry to get where we're going," she said finally, watching Sally's face instead of the dog. "Most folks I bring in, they want it over, get the waiting done with." Sally's hand stilled on the dog's ear. For one long moment, Eliza thought she'd answer honest, thought she saw the shape of something true rising up behind those gray eyes, ready to be spoken. Then Sally straightened, and the shutters came down soft and practiced, and she was smiling again, easy as ever. "Bounty hunter with a curious streak. Careful, Vance. Folks will start saying you've got a heart." She said it light, but she didn't answer the question, and Eliza, walking the newly shod horse back out onto the Prescott road with 4 hours lost and no good reason for any of it, found she couldn't stop turning the not answering over in her mind, the way you'd turn a coin to see if it was counterfeit. By the 3rd night, Eliza had stopped pretending, at least to herself, that this was an ordinary haul. She'd counted 11 separate delays since the capture, a thrown shoe, a missing canteen that turned up, mysteriously, exactly where Sally had said it wasn't, a creek crossing Sally swore was too high to risk, though the water hadn't come past the horse's fetticles, a dozen small nothings, none of them worth remarking alone, all of them together forming a pattern Eliza had seen in her work, but never, not once in 10 years, in a prisoner trying to slow her own arrival at the gallows. She built the fire that night at the base of a rock outcrop that cut the wind and watched Sally across it while the coffee heated, turning the question over before she asked it plain. "You're stalling." Sally didn't deny it. That, more than anything, told Eliza she'd guessed right. A liar denied things reflexively out of habit, whether the lie held up or not. Sally just looked at the fire, jaw tight, cuffed hands very still in her lap, and said nothing at all, which was its own kind of confession if Eliza had ever heard one. "Most folks can't wait to get where they're going," Eliza said, quieter now. "Even folks headed somewhere bad. There's a relief in getting a hard thing over with. You don't want that. You'd walk to Mexico first, given the choice." "Maybe I would." Her voice had gone thin, stripped of its easy warmth. "Why?" For a moment, the only sound was the fire, and the wind working through the rocks above them, and somewhere off in the dark, a coyote testing its voice against the night. Sally's throat worked. Her hands, cuffed together, tightened until the knuckles went pale. Then she laughed, short and wrong, the sound of a door slamming shut rather than a door opening. Bounty hunter with a conscience. Now I've heard everything under God's sky. She turned her face away, back towards the dark beyond the firelight, and whatever had nearly come loose in her went still and locked again, the way it had at the farrier's shop. Eliza let it go, told herself there was no profit in pushing a prisoner toward a truth that wasn't her business to know. But she lay awake a long while that night, watching the shape of Sally's shoulders where she slept, or pretended to, on the far side of the fire, and found she could not stop thinking about the particular way fear had moved across that steady face. Not fear of a rope. She'd seen men afraid of ropes before, and it looked nothing like this. This was older, deeper rooted, the kind of fear a person carried folded up small and hidden for years until it had worn a shape into them that even stillness couldn't hide. She thought, too, of the man named Cole, hadn't let herself think of him in the better part of 2 years, and hated that Sally Bronson's steady hands had gone and dragged him up out of the dark where she'd buried him. Cole, with his easy smile and his gentle voice, who'd ridden 3 weeks at her side telling her things that felt like truth, right until the moment he put a bullet through her partner Sam's back and rode off with the payroll they'd been hired to guard. She had trusted him, had let herself for 3 foolish weeks believe a smile could be taken at face value. She was not going to make that mistake twice. She told herself that with real conviction, watching Sally's still shoulders across the dying fire, and did not entirely believe it even as she thought it. The 4th day brought rain, thin and cold, the kind that soaked through wool before a person noticed they were wet at all. They rode close together for the warmth of it, closer than the road required, close enough that Eliza could hear Sally's breathing change when the trail climbed steep, close enough to see the rain caught in her eyelashes when she turned her face up to check the sky. "Storm's not gonna break until dark," Sally said. "We ought to find shelter. We ought to make miles. We ought to not both catch our deaths for the sake of 2 hours." Sally nodded toward a stand of rock off the trail, an overhang deep enough to keep the worst of the weather off. "There. Won't cost us more than an hour, and I'd rather ride in dry tomorrow than wet today." It was sensible. That was the maddening part. None of Sally's delays were unreasonable on their own, each one dressed up in perfectly good sense so that objecting to any single one of them would have made Eliza sound like the unreasonable party. She turned the horse toward the rocks without further argument, and told herself that was the only reason. Under the overhang, with the rain hissing outside and a small fire smoking reluctantly to life, Sally held her cupped hands out toward the flame, and Eliza noticed, not for the first time, the scar circling one wrist. Old and pale, the kind that came from a rope or an iron bracelet worn too tight, too long. "That from cuffs?" Eliza asked, before she decided to. Sally's hand stilled. For a moment, she looked at the scar like she'd forgotten it was there, the way a person forgets an old ache until weather brings it back. Something like that. She didn't pull the wrist away exactly, but she turned it, casual as anything, so the scar sat in shadow instead of firelight. "You've got a lot of those. Long stories not for tonight." "A man collects a few, my line of work." A ghost of the easy smile again, though it didn't reach her eyes this time. "You don't strike me as the type who tells all hers either, Vance." That landed closer to true than Eliza wanted to admit. She thought of Cole and Sam's back turned careless in the firelight 2 years gone, and the particular shape of trust once it had been broken. How it never quite sat the same in a person again, no matter how much they wanted it to. "Fair," she said, and let the scar go for tonight, though she did not let it go inside her own mind. Not really. It sat there the rest of the evening, small and insistent, a puzzle piece that didn't yet have a picture to belong to. They rode out again when the rain broke, and made camp proper that night in a hollow shielded from the wind, and Sally, cuffed hands and all, helped gather wood for the fire with an efficiency that told Eliza she'd done it 100 times before on 100 other trails, running from something Eliza still couldn't name. "You're good at this," Eliza said, watching her build the fire's bones with practiced hands, camping rough, making do. Had a lot of practice. Sally struck the flint, coaxed the first small flame into being with a patience most men twice her size didn't have. Rather be good at surviving out here than bad at it. Learned that lesson early. From who? The flint stilled in her hand. For just a moment, watching the newborn fire instead of Eliza's face, something passed over her features that wasn't fear exactly and wasn't grief exactly, but sat somewhere close kin to both. Nobody worth talking about. She said it too fast, too light, and busied her hands feeding the fire instead of meeting Eliza's eyes. "Coffee's about ready. You take it black, or am I misremembering?" She wasn't misremembering. She'd noticed 3 nights back how Eliza took her coffee and hadn't asked again since, had simply started fixing it the right way the first time every morning after, without being told twice. It was a small thing. It was, Eliza thought, watching her pour 2 cups with hands that had gone steady again, the kind of small thing that a person only noticed if they'd been paying a particular sort of attention. She was paying that sort of attention. She could no longer pretend, to herself at least, that she wasn't. They did not speak of the scar again that night or the next morning, but something had shifted in the space between them all the same, a loosening, subtle as a knot worked patiently by careful fingers. Sally still turned conversation away from Prescott, away from whatever waited there, but she let more of herself show at the edges now, unguarded moments Eliza collected without meaning to. The way she hummed under her breath when she worked, unaware she was doing it. The particular crease between her eyebrows when she was thinking something through she hadn't decided to say. The gentleness, startling each time against everything the wanted poster claimed about her, with which she'd handled that 3-legged dog back in Willow Bend, and the way she still asked after it 2 days on, like the animal's welfare genuinely troubled her. "You don't seem like a woman who's robbed 4 stagecoaches," Eliza said, watching Sally coax a stubborn mule of a packhorse crossing a narrow ford with nothing but patience in a low, steady voice. 3. Sally didn't look up from the horse. "Poster's wrong on the 4th. Wasn't me." "That's supposed to make me feel better about hauling you in?" "Supposed to make you accurate is all." A small, wry twist of her mouth. "Man likes his crimes counted right, even the ones he's hanged for." "Why'd you do them? The 3 you'll own to." Sally was quiet a long moment, coaxing the last of the mule across the water, and Eliza thought she'd dodged this too, the way she dodged everything since the burned-out shack. But when she spoke, her voice had gone low and plain, stripped of her usual easy performance. "Needed the money bad enough to stop asking myself if I had the right to take it." She led the mule up the far bank, not looking back. Man in trouble stops being particular about how he gets out of it. Woman too. Trouble like what? Trouble like none of your business, Vance, seeing as you're only paid to bring me in, not to hear my confession. But there was no heat in it. If anything, her voice had gone softer, almost apologetic, like she regretted the wall even as she put it up. "Ask me an easier question." Eliza considered her a moment. Her straight set of shoulders, her deliberate lightness she was working to keep in her voice, the way her hand had gone, without seeming to notice, to that old scar at her wrist. "All right, easier question. Where'd you learn to gentle a mule like that?" And something in Sally's shoulders came down half an inch, grateful for the easier ground, and she talked for the better part of an hour about a ranch she'd worked one summer in her girlhood, an old wrangler who taught her patience was worth more than rope, and Eliza listened to every word of it and found she wanted, with an intensity that alarmed her, to know the harder stories too, the ones Sally wasn't ready to tell yet. The 6th night, the fire burned low, and neither of them fed it, content to let the dark close soft around the last of the coals. "Can I ask you something?" Sally said into the quiet. Her voice had lost its usual armor of easy charm. What was left underneath sounded almost young. "Go on. What do you do with the money after?" A pause, careful, like she was picking each word up and checking it before she set it down. "After you bring somebody in." "Pay debts, feed the horse, buy what needs buying till the next job comes along." Eliza watched the coals instead of her. Not much of an answer. "That's not an answer, that's a chore list." Didn't ask for company on this ride or a company that pries. Didn't offer to be quiet either. Sally tipped her chin toward what was left of the fire, and for a moment, brief, unguarded, gone as fast as it came, something in her face went naked in a way Eliza hadn't seen from her yet. Not the easy performance, not the steady, unbothered mask, just tired, just scared underneath all of it in a way that made her look younger than she had any right to, cuffed hands and wanted poster and all. "You always talk this much to folks you're fixin' to hang?" "Ain't hanging you, judge does that." "Same thing from where I'm sitting." She said it without bitterness, just plain fact, and turned her face away toward the dark beyond the firelight before Eliza could answer. Eliza didn't have an answer, anyway. She sat with the silence instead, and found her eyes kept drifting back to the line of Sally's throat, the fall of dust-colored hair loose now from its braid, the particular stillness of a woman who had made her peace days or weeks ago with something Eliza still didn't understand, and found, too, that some stubborn, unguarded part of her chest had started wondering what it would take to make that peace unnecessary. What it would take for Sally Bronson to stop bracing for the worst at the end of every road. She didn't let herself finish the thought, not that night, but it followed her into sleep all the same and was waiting for her, patient as weather, when she woke. The 7th day, half a day out from Prescott, they stopped to water the horses at a creek too narrow to be properly called a river, the current running low and clear over smooth stones. Sally knelt at the bank, sleeves pushed up past her wrists, and the morning light fell full and unforgiving on the scar Eliza had noticed twice now and let go both times. It circled her wrist complete, pale and old, the kind of mark that came from an iron worn cruel and long. "Pruitt," Eliza said. Not a question this time. She turned the word over half the night, a name she'd heard once or twice in passing, always in a tone men used for things they didn't want to say plainer. Her hand went still in the water. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The current ran on, indifferent, and somewhere upstream a jay scolded something Eliza couldn't see, and Sally knelt there with her scarred wrist half submerged and her jaw working like she was chewing on whether the truth was worth the cost of saying it out loud. "That marshal runs that jail like it's his own private kingdom. Man's got a taste for prisoners nobody's watching close." Her hands, steady through everything else this whole long week, had curled into fists against the current. "I was fool enough to get caught near Prescott once before, learned what that scar's for the hard way, learned to run good after." Eliza's chest had gone tight and cold, the way it did before a fight she already knew was coming. "You'd rather hang than go back into that jail," she said slowly. "I'd rather hang clean than owe that man what he thinks he owes me a second time." Sally finally lifted her eyes, and there was no performance left in her face at all now, nothing but plain, unguarded fear. "That's the whole of it, Vance. That's why I let you catch me easy as I did, because whatever you were going to do to bring me in, it couldn't be worse than what he'd do once you handed me over. And because I looked 3 towns back and heard you don't quit a trail once you're on it, figured if I had to be caught by somebody, better it be somebody thorough enough that maybe," her voice cracked just slightly on the word, "maybe thorough enough to notice something was wrong before it was too late to matter." The words landed somewhere under Eliza's ribs and stayed there, heavy and true. "You've been buying time this whole week, every delay, not to escape, to—" "What?" hope I'd figure it out on my own? Didn't dare ask outright. Sally's laugh came out thin, more grief in it than humor. Man who asks a bounty hunter for mercy generally gets told the law's the law, and I'd used up my faith in mercy a long while back. Figured the best I could do was slow the road down and hope you were paying enough attention to wonder why. I was. Eliza's voice had gone rough, unfamiliar to her own ears. Sally looked at her then, really looked, gray eyes steady despite everything shaking loose underneath, and something passed between them in that look that neither of them had words ready for yet. They didn't move from the creek for a long while. "I've hauled in 100 prisoners," Eliza said finally, sitting back on her heels in the wet gravel, "and never once thought twice about what happened after I handed them over. That was the job. Catch them, collect the money, ride on to the next name. And now? Now I keep picturing you in a cell with the man who put that scar on your wrist, and I don't much like what that picture does to me." She said it plain, no dressing on it, because she'd run out of the patience to dress things up. "I've been wrong about people before, trusted somebody I shouldn't have. Man named Cole, rode with him 3 weeks, thought I knew him, and he put a bullet in my partner's back the first chance greed gave him." Her jaw tightened around the old grief of it. "Told myself after that I wouldn't be fool enough to hand my judgment over to somebody's smile again." "I'm not asking you to trust me." Sally's voice had gone low, urgent, stripped down past performance to something entirely true. "I know what I look like on paper, 3 stagecoaches and a poster with my face drawn uglier than God made it. I'm not asking you to believe every word out of my mouth." She held her scarred wrist up, offering it the way she'd offered her hands that very first morning at the burned shack. Not in surrender this time, but in evidence. "I'm asking you to look at this and ask yourself if a woman lies about a thing like that." Eliza looked, really looked, the way she hadn't quite let herself the 2 times before. Not just the scar itself, but the whole shape of the woman wearing it, kneeling in creek water with her sleeves pushed up and her carefully built composure finally entirely stripped away. A woman who'd rather face a rope with her eyes open than a locked door with her eyes closed. A woman who'd spent a week stealing minutes off a clock because minutes were the only currency left to her, and who'd done it without ever once asking outright for the one thing she actually needed, because she'd learned, the hard way, not to expect it granted. "Pruitt's Perkid," Eliza said, slowly. "I've heard the talk in 3 separate towns now, never had proof solid enough to act on." "You've got me," Sally said. "That's proof enough if you're willing to say it out loud to somebody who'll listen." The creek ran on between them, patient, indifferent to the size of what was being decided over its water. Eliza thought of 10 years of finished jobs, of a reputation built careful and slow, town by town, on the simple fact that when Eliza Vance took a bounty in, she brought it all the way home. She thought of the money waiting in Prescott, money she'd counted on more than once these last 3 months to see her through the winter. Then she thought of Sally's steady hands on that fence rail, steady because giving in seemed easier once than fighting a fight she'd already decided she'd lose, and found the money weighed nothing at all against it. "There's a circuit judge 2 counties north, man named Whitfield, got a reputation for hearing things straight, no matter whose toes it steps on." She stood, offering a hand down to help Sally up out of the creek water, and after a moment's hesitation, Sally took it, cuffed hands closing around Eliza's bare one, warm despite the cold water, steady despite everything shaking loose beneath the surface of her. "We ride to him instead, tell him everything, let the law be the law somewhere it's still willing to act like it." "That'll cost you the bounty." "Might cost me more than that once Pruitt's people hear a hunter went around him instead of through him." Eliza held on to her hand a beat longer than the help climbing the bank required, and neither of them pulled away first. "Find I don't much care." They rode north that afternoon instead of west, away from Prescott and the gallows and the marshal with the taste for prisoners. Nobody watched close, and something in the set of Sally's shoulders eased with every mile that put Prescott further behind them. That night's fire burned warmer than any of the 6 before it, though the wood was no different and the wind no gentler. Sally sat close enough now that their shoulders nearly touched, cuffed hands loose in her lap, and for the first time in a week, Eliza saw her simply rest, not braced, not performing ease she didn't feel, just still, in a way that looked like relief finally allowed to be real. "Why?" Sally asked, watching her across what was left of the flames. "Are you doing this? Really? You could have kept riding to Prescott, collected your money, told yourself it wasn't your business what happened after." Eliza thought about that a long moment before she answered, thought about 10 years of finished jobs and a reputation for thoroughness that had, in the end, been the very thing Sally had counted on to save her, though neither of them had known it yet at the burned-out shack. "Because I finish what I start," she said finally, "and somewhere back around that thrown shoe, I stopped believing bringing you in dead or delivered to Pruitt counted as finishing anything at all." She reached over, slow, giving Sally every chance to pull back if she wanted to, and closed her hand around the scarred wrist, not to hold it captive this time, but simply to hold it. "Decided this job isn't done till you're someplace safe. Rest of it, I'll work out as it comes." Sally's breath caught, soft, at the touch. She turned her hand beneath Eliza's until their fingers laced together, cuffed wrist and bare one, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything at all, content to let the fire and the dark say it for them. "I looked for you a long while," Eliza admitted, quiet, into the space between them. "Told myself it was only the job. Didn't let myself wonder till about the 3rd day why finding you felt like something more than closing out a bounty." "And now?" "Now I know exactly why." Eliza's voice had gone rough, unfamiliar, honest in a way she hadn't let herself be with another person in longer than she cared to count. "It scares me some telling you that, given what trusting the wrong smile cost me last time." "I'm not him." Sally's thumb moved, small and deliberate, along the back of Eliza's hand. "Can't promise you I'm not going to make mistakes. Can promise you I'm not going to put a bullet in anybody's back while you're not looking." "That's a low bar." Man works with the bar he's given. A real smile now, small and unguarded, the first Eliza had seen from her that carried no performance in it at all. "Ask me for a higher one sometime when we're not 2 counties from a marshal who wants my head." "I'm asking now." Eliza's voice had dropped low, and she found she meant it entirely. Not a question about bounties or judges or anything the law had a hand in, but something plainer and more frightening than any of that. "Stay, after the judge, after whatever comes of Pruitt, wherever the road takes me next, stay." Sally didn't answer with words. She leaned in instead, slow enough that Eliza had every chance to lean away and didn't, and kissed her, soft at first, uncertain, like a question still being asked even as it was answered, and then not uncertain at all, cuffed hands coming up to rest against Eliza's jaw with a gentleness that undid something in her chest she hadn't known was still tightly wound. When they finally parted, Sally's forehead rested against hers, both of them breathing unsteady in the firelight. "Yes," Sally said, simple as anything, like she'd been waiting her whole life for someone to finally ask the question plain enough to answer. Above them, the fire climbed a little higher against the dark, throwing gold light across 2 faces that had, a week and a lifetime ago, been nothing to each other but a bounty and the woman paid to collect it. Neither of them looked back towards Prescott again. Ahead, past the ridge, past the judge, and whatever reckoning waited for a crooked marshal once the truth reached ears willing to hear it, the road ran on into country neither of them had traveled yet. For the first time in longer than either could remember, that felt less like a threat than a promise.